Hi there, Surrey Chapel. A quick update from us as to plans with the church as things go forward with COVID-19 and all that has meant. There is probably one big headline and three implications for us. And the big headline is our plans haven't really changed much. That is, we are not planning on being able to meet back together centrally for quite some time. Now, let me explain to you some of the reasons for that. As a leadership team, and actually as pastors, me and Gary, we are not just thinking about this as sort of an isolated unit. We are in touch with pastors all over the country and churches all over the country who are having to wrestle with exactly the same issues as us. I was on a call, a webinar yesterday with John Stevens, the director of the FIC, who again is in sort of almost weekly or bi-weekly meetings with Downing Street as a representation of lots of different religious leaders. And he was saying that they have been petitioned very hard on the opening of churches for worship. Now, you will have remembered that Boris said that the 4th of July, 5th of July, that churches would be able to reopen. Now, when he said that about a month or so ago, he actually meant being open for private prayer. Now, they've brought that through and that happened on the 15th of July. He wasn't talking about being open for worship services. And John Stevens was telling us the discussion that the government still haven't made their mind up on this when reopening church buildings on the 5th of July, whether that is going to be for very specific events like a funeral, or whether it will be for public worship, as it were, but certainly it would not have singing. Now, the reason they are reticent is partly because they do not understand the priority and what people like ourselves who follow and love Christ are missing by being together in this way. They don't understand it, and so they're happy to open Primark and not open churches. But the other reason is they are reticent because as they look at the statistics worldwide, it is in meetings of worship that the virus spreads most virulently. There's something about people being together. We let our guards down, there's singing, there's all those things which spreads the virus. And so that is one of the reasons that they are being very cautious with how they reopen and what that means for churches. Now, for smaller churches who have big buildings, reopening is not going to be such an issue. But for church such as ours, with so many people in such a small space, loads of children, social distancing, a real mixture of ages, meeting up centrally still is very challenging. When you think about schools, yes, they are reopening, but they are reopening with classes in like pods of 6 or pods of 15. Our friends are in a school where their child has gone back. She's in reception and she's back in 2 days a week. We're in a pod. She has to bring all her own pencil cases and all that. They're not allowed to use resources from the school. She has to stay in her pod. So it's not interacting with lots of other people. It's with a very small group of people. And then they're in 2 days a week. Then they deep clean the school for a day and they allow another group to come in for 2 days. Now, they are trying to open things up, but in very restricted ways. So they're trying to limit people interacting, families interacting with other families. Think about weddings. I mean, they really are unlikely to allow weddings to occur over the coming weeks and months, maybe groups of 10 people, because they don't want lots of families being together and interacting, and different families because they want to limit the spread of the virus. So that is part of their thinking. And so again, we're just wanting to help taper expectations about what it will mean for us to meet back together and when that will be. We'll be looking about July and August. We're already saying we are not thinking about being back in church. We are thinking about mid-September, But again, we are not going to promise that. What some of the larger churches in our network, the FIC network, have already said to their church family that they will certainly not be meeting back until after Christmas. Now, I know that sounds shocking, doesn't it? But there are two very large, significant churches in the network. And what we've got to understand is we are a larger church in the network. And because of the very nature of our size, it makes it less straightforward for us to meet safely, in a way that honours God, and in a way where we can do the ministry of church. So 3 implications for us. And I think the first implication is just acknowledging there is a loss in that. So many of us want things to return back to normal, and you may even be frustrated with us thinking, well, why aren't you doing more to make this happen? And actually, we just can't give you certainty at the moment because there's so much uncertainty. And so again, what do we need to do? We need to throw our weight upon the Lord, who is our only secure rock. Some of us will be feeling disconnected. All of us feel disconnected, don't we? Because we just miss the interactions. And you may be thinking, I can't serve in the way that I want to serve. And what I want to encourage you to do is, all of us are called to serve during this time, but service looks different from what our normal roles were in church. Our role may have been making the teas and coffee. Our role may have been teaching in young church. And in this season, our role is different. It is one anothering. It's being in touch with each other. It's picking up the phone and asking, how are you doing? And praying for each other. It's knocking on someone's door and having a socially distanced cuppa. It's all those things. We're all called to serve, and it looks different in this season. Because the second thing for us to be aware of is that small groups are going to be really important as restrictions are lifted a little bit. Having people over from your Connect group in the garden for a cuppa, maybe to meet outside for a little walk. Small groups are going to be the way we're going to have to connect over the next couple of months. And the third thing is to keep leaning into the Lord. As I said before, He is the unchanging one. He is our rock. Keep reading our Bibles. Keep praying. He will keep us by His Spirit. And actually, it's a good thing that our hearts long to be back together. I'll be talking more at the members meeting, the church members meeting, for those of you who are church members, in 2 weeks' time. I'll talk a little bit into this. But we are trying to get a team together to help think about the logistics of how we get back into the building. That will all be in hand. But we look to Him. We can't give more certainty at this time. And we have to keep trusting Him that He is at work in us through this season and through what we've been able to do online in this season. Let's look to Him, the Lord of the harvest, to bring in His harvest field.